Buenas noches, mi gente. Buenas noches, mi gente. This is your Collazo, and you're watching and listening to the Found in Translation Talk Show. The talk show that stacks truth about politics and today's hottest issues. This is your Collazo. Thank you so much for joining us, whether it's on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube Live, as a podcast, anywhere you can download a podcast, and of course, as a radio program at WPPM LP 106.5 in Philadelphia. Hashtag People Power Media. This is bonus coverage, my friends. This is your Super Tuesday Eve edition of Found in Translation. We're going to break down what the incredible results in the South Carolina primary mean for the rest of the race. The drop-offs, the people that fell off metaphorically and literally over the last couple of days. Some would say back that thing up out of the race. And, of course, a Super Tuesday preview. And, of course, we had to bring in our producer and political commentator, Rod and Shadi, on this episode of Found in Translation. Elbert Garcia, brother.
What's up, Ray? What's up?
Well, there's a lot going on. Look, we're already getting comments, and the juices are flowing. Angel Hernandez
already.
He's already jumped in on Facebook. Biden should drop out now. Well, I don't think that's going to happen, player. We're going to talk about that. Elbert, first of all, really quickly, tell people about the Que Lo Que podcast. And, if you could give people a very quick update, what's going on in the Dominican Republic, because we have not talked about the fracaso and that's impacting the democracy of DR. So just a real quick update on that.
Well, look, a real quick update is that, look, for the last really almost close to more than a week, there have been protests in the Dominican Republic concentrated around different cities of Santo Domingo, as well as other places, basically protesting the fact that the junta, basically the elections board canceled the municipal elections. And municipal elections are a really key set of elections that happened before the May presidential elections. And pretty much because there was this whole big snafu with the actual voting machines, right? There was this whole big thing around whether or not these new electric voting machines actually were displaying all the right candidates. And so after basically a couple of hours, they decided to shut it down. And again, that led to a lot of talk, especially after the last couple of months, in terms of corruption charges and inter-party fighting. And the truth of the matter is that Dominicans don't want to have nothing to do with it. We don't want to have anything to do with that stuff. They want their democracy back. And so, they've really been out there not only in the streets in DR, but also around in other cities across the nation. I mean, you saw that especially last week in places not just like New York and Washington Heights, but in places like Miami and LA, where there really isn't a huge amount of Dominican population, all the way going to Spain, because the Dominicans are there, right? And yeah, no, definitely. And again, there's a lot of great reporters that are really reporting live. Shout out to Amanda Alcantara over at Latino Rebels, who's been in DR and was reporting live from there. And so she's been doing some great reporting out there about the situation that's going out there.
So we'll definitely let Elbert, you and Venus, the host of the talk show to discuss Dominican issues, the Que Lo Que podcast, which you can check out anywhere. You can download a podcast. I know there's been a lot of buzz ever since Dominicans on the Hill event, which you attended with Venus. There was you couldn't find each other, but it was a lot of fun anyway. And of course, a lot of friends of ours. There's a buzz. There's like a lot of jockeying for position. Who's going to be the next guest? Will it be a Sid Wilson? Will it be Alejandra Castillo? A lot of people that are very prominent in the Dominican community. We're looking forward to see on Que Lo Que. But in this show, so much love to our Dominicanos. We're going to continue to monitor the situation. We'll rely on you to provide us updates and the rest of the people monitoring that in the Dominican journalist world. Want to give people a quick summary of what we saw from the South Carolina primary, what the dropouts mean, the people that fell off, preview Super Tuesday, and we want to touch on a couple other news headlines impacting our whole country, and particularly the Latino community. So South Carolina, big picture for people that maybe have lives and did enjoy things over the weekend. It was critical that Vice President Biden not only win South Carolina, but get a big victory, put a big number on the board to look viable, and not only just win a race and look like he can win something, but also to really show that he is sort of the singular figure left in his primary that has the support in the Black community. And I think he did even better than he expected, frankly. And so, we were looking at over a 20-point margin over Bernie Sanders, who still has the delegate lead. and has, of course, won the most races in the first early 4 states, and certainly has had the most sort of on-the-ground energy, and has the most money outside the billionaires at this point. So I think there's a couple things that I think that are important for us to note. The first one is that it's clear that Biden was on the ropes, no question about it, in every single way. And not only did he pep up a little bit in that last debate, but I think overwhelmingly the sentiment was, there was certainly an opening, you could argue, for other candidates to garner a significant amount of black support. And while Sanders made some inroads, it's clear that, at least in South Carolina, the black electorate did just not see a viable alternative. Whether that's a viable alternative that they had a connection with, generally liked, or they saw a viable alternative that could potentially be Trump in November. Because it's pretty clear from the black electorate throughout the country, and South Carolina is no different, than electability and someone that can defeat this menace to our country, and particularly to people of color, is the number one priority for the black community. So Biden, you could say by default or by earning his stripes, with a decades relationship with black leadership and just having a presence in the state over the years through his political career, put him over the top. It often comes up in these conversations that people always ask me. I'm always getting texts from people, DMs now, and I appreciate people, reaching out to me to ask me these questions. I get this question a lot about the importance of endorsements, and I sort of have this weird corner amongst the punditry class. I don't think endorsements hardly ever mean anything. I'm actually the opposite when it comes to baseball managers, by the way. And I know Monty Perez is watching this, who just made a comment on Twitter that he thinks Pete Buttigieg may rue the day that he dropped out this early. So we'll talk about that in a second. Monty, good. But in terms of and Monty also comments, Biden has a ton of momentum now. Has raised a ton of money off to South Carolina. Good point, Monty. But that, I'm kind of the opposite with baseball managers. I think baseball managers mean something. But in politics, I don't think endorsements mean anything. But let me tell you, and people ask me how important congressmen and someone that's the heads the whip process for that is in House leadership and House of Representatives, very highly ranked, along with Nancy Pelosi running the House of Representatives. It's clear to me that Congressman Clyburn endorsement made a humongous difference. And it was interesting because, for 2 reasons. One is that I think he better articulated the theory of the case for Biden better than Biden has all year. And I even put in social media, maybe Congressman Clyburn should run for president, because I think that emotional endorsement on Wednesday really hit people in a very significant way. And so I think it also is clear that the key phrase in Clyburn's endorsement wasn't about a policy issue, wasn't about praising Biden, the efficacy of Biden's campaign. In fact, he's actually been pretty critical, publicly and privately, of the campaign. But it's pretty clear that he really summed up his support by saying, we know him. I know him. I trust him. And that gutter relationship, I think, sort of superseded everything at the end of the day. Is he the most astonishing candidate, most organized? No. He didn't get this support because of his debate performances or his campaign organization or even his message. It's that relationship. It's his understanding that if and when Biden were to be president, South Carolina would have a voice in the administration. And I guess for Clyburn, Representative Clyburn, he didn't see that with Senator Sanders for whatever reason. And I think the last thing I wanted to share about South Carolina is, for black voters, obviously electability was a big factor. And it's interesting because you could see it cynically, you could see it optimistically to say that this is showing the shrewdness of black voters, at least in South Carolina. The shrewdness of seeing that, they're looking for a candidate that not only could beat Trump in November, but also could support down ballot races and keep the House in Democratic hands, potentially flip some of the Senate seats. Now, the pessimistic person could say, maybe this generation of older black voters in particular are sort of okay with the status quo. Well, it produced Obama, and it didn't, at least Democrats of this generation are not openly hostile to black people, and they're certainly better than the alternative. maybe there is a fear of change, even though this is a change that's offering sort of unprecedented levels, at least of rhetoric, around dealing with racial injustice, as Senator Sanders and even Senator Warren are providing. So interesting how, in this context, in some ways, you could argue whether proactive, whether willingly or sort of, tangentially, or Black voters are sort of moving the agenda of the Democratic establishment, which from basic cable, even though I've done wrong, basic cable pundits, from basic cable to the corporate class, it's clear that even Democrats, even elite progressives, are nervous about not only what a Senator Sanders nomination would mean for the election, but what it would mean if he actually won. And they would be kind of they wouldn't be invited to cool kid parties in DC at that point. You're listening and watching to Founding Translation, which hosts Ray Collazo. Why don't you jump on here, Elbert Garcia, our co-host for today. Let me know, brother, what are your thoughts about what happened in South Carolina?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is definitely about a demographic, this is about a demographic, tale, right? I mean, you've got, like you said, you've got older Black voters. I think it also tells you a little bit about, where the Sanders campaign thinks it can win. I think they wanted to do well in South Carolina, but at the same time too, they also they polled very, very well with folks under 45, and so I think they'll take that win, and they'll take that into Super Tuesday in California. I think the real question, and I think I think a lot of discussion has been placed on Biden because he came, in essence, he needed this win. And look, at the end of the day, if Obama's vice president can't win South Carolina, he's got bigger issues, right? So I think that at the end of the day, I mean, was to be expected, or could have been expected, and obviously he doesn't win it without Clyburn, right? But I think what's interesting to me is, and again, I think, and there was a New York Times article on Friday that at least talked about this, about Elizabeth Warren, right? And Elizabeth Warren really, not just in South Carolina, but in Florida and a couple of these places, really has the ear of, grassroots activists on the ground, right? In terms of Black women, especially Black women, right? In terms of activists. And yet that seems to not be generating, a connection to the larger, at least Black vote in South Carolina. Maybe people would even say in terms of the rest of the field. And so I think that's also, to me, I think that's also just as much an important story around this, right? That if you've got people organizing around policy, in terms of Black vote, what does it mean that a person like Elizabeth Warren isn't really capturing the imagination of general folks? So I think that's a really interesting play there.
Well, Elbert, to that point, and we talk about one of the things we've chronicled extensively on Founding Translation. Our special guest is in the queue. We're going to be with you in a second, my dear. That one of the things we've been really excited about is this opportunity, regardless of what candidates our folks have supported, that it's these campaigns, a lot of them, whether they're still with us or have long gone or just going on this recently, that they provided a lot of our friends the opportunity to express themselves, whether it's people like Lilia Mejia for the Bernie Sanders campaign, Cecilia Cabello, a dear Columbia alum of ours that was until today, the California State Director of the Buttigieg campaign.
Oh, that's right.
Our homeboy Cristobal Alex with the Biden campaign, Chuck Rocha, of course. Many people that are connected to all of these campaigns we have a lot of love for, that regardless of who ends up winning, we want to support and elevate their leadership. But we want to give an example of someone that literally is barnstorming the country, Elbert, to show her leadership, raise the issues of criminal justice reform as it impacts women in particular, and someone that's just has an incredible personal story. We want to bring on the show a great friend to the show, Leyla Martinez. Leyla, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Leyla, why don't you let people know who you are, a little bit about yourself, and a little bit about this journey you've been on to support your candidate over the last few weeks.
Sorry, I'm trying to charge my phone. I've been canvassing all day and my phone is dying. So I'm Leyla Martinez. I am originally from New York. I'm from the Bronx, born and raised. I'm Dominican, and I am also someone who's formerly incarcerated. And I'm an activist, a formerly incarcerated activist. I fight for the rights of formerly incarcerated people. And I don't know, what else do you want to know? I graduated from Columbia a few years ago. I have a degree in human rights from Columbia University. Hello?
Yes, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So Leyla, so let people know what you've been doing the last few weeks. You're not only a supporter of Senator Sanders, but you've been on the road. So tell people about this part of the journey.
It's so crazy. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. It's the first time that I've ever supported any presidential campaign in this way. I've never volunteered before, but I've never traveled. I've never done this. I'm also a DSA member, and I received an email from DSA saying that the campaign needed help with Spanish-speaking voters in Iowa, and I was not sure how I was going to do it, but I wanted to help, so I started a GoFundMe campaign, and the Bernie family showed up, and I was able to go to Iowa and help with the Spanish-speaking voters there. I also went to New Hampshire. There wasn't really much of a Latino population, but I did help them there. Then I went to Nevada, which was amazing. And I'm here in Texas. I spent a few days in Houston, and now I'm down in the valley near the border, speaking to our people and telling them about the campaign and how we are, fighting for everyone, especially our Latino community. That's what Bernie's doing. He's been fighting for us for over 40 years. That's why I support him. The reason why I support Bernie is because in 2015, I had no idea who he was. And someone told me, yeah, I think I'm going to vote for Bernie. So I started doing some research on who he was, and I came across a video, a compilation of his speeches over 30 years. And I realized at that moment that he had been fighting for me and for people who look like me since before I was born. So he's fighting for us. He's been fighting for us for this long. It's our turn now to fight for him, and that's what I'm doing.
And so, what's so fascinating, Leyla, is that you literally have gone all over the country supporting him over the last few weeks. And I'm really, we have activist Leyla Martinez here, who's literally been on the ground. I thought it was important because, there's a lot of us, and look, even to me to some degree, that are, social media activists on this. We have a lot of opinions, but I really admire the people, whether they're with Sanders or with any of the campaigns, frankly. But Sanders has the most energy, clearly, with his supporters, people that are going out there and talking to people. So, Leyla, I wanted you to tell our Final Translation audience, your story is very important, but the most important story is the people you're talking to. So talk to us about the people, whether they're Latino or not, that you've been knocking on their doors from Iowa to Texas now to Las Vegas. And tell us those stories. Tell us about what you've learned in this journey, talking to people close to close, about politics, about Sanders, about what's going on over the last few weeks.
One of the most important things to me, I support I support all of the policies that Bernie Sanders is trying to implement. But the thing that's most important to me, because I am someone that has been directly impacted by it, I was disenfranchised for some time, and he's the only candidate that is looking to ensure that everyone who is a citizen and over 18 has the right to vote. And what I've been coming across is a lot of people who are disenfranchised that are unable to vote. So I'm making sure that that I speak to them, and I ask them to also speak to their family members, their friends, and tell them to be their voice, to vote for them. Like in Texas, for example, people who are still on parole or probation are unable to vote. So I want the folks to know that if they're off of parole, they can vote, or off of probation, that all they had to do was register again. And I want to ensure that other canvassers know the policies in each state, because every state varies.
What is talk to us about some of the issues? Obviously, that issue of sort of just voting enfranchisement, which is a big issue
Disenfranchisement,
in the general election. whether that's people that have had been caught up in the justice system or just immigration. For whatever reason, we have not had an opportunity or had our equitable access to the polls. What are the issues that you're hearing from people? And again, you've been talking to a real diverse set of folks around the country.
Medicare for all is something that's definitely something that a lot of people. We just met a couple here less than an hour ago that they are really big supporters of Bernie because they want Medicare for all, because they want a college education for their kids and everyone else. And they've been speaking to their friends and family members and neighbors about Bernie and the things that he supports. That's definitely a big issue. I also have, hello, are you there?
Yes,
I kind of lost you. I lost you. Do you see me?
Yes, we see you.
Okay, I can't see you. Okay. Yeah, so a lot of the people and some of the I think I posted a video of someone yesterday that you can tell how honest Bernie is, and a lot of the Latinos that I've been speaking to just say that that Bernie just seems honest and that he seems like a good person, and that they can see that he wants to help us, and that's why they're voting for him. Some have already voted. A lot of folks have already voted. I really think in Nevada, I predicted that that Bernie was going to win, and it was going to be because of the help of Latinos. I'm feeling pretty positive. I was saying that before even the poll thing came out. There was a poll today showing that Bernie Sanders is going to win, and it's going to be because of Latinos.
Yeah, and that's right. It's showing evidence. It was pretty nip and tuck. He's been in the lead or very close with Biden, even Bloomberg, in the last several weeks. And the latest polling out of Texas kind of gave him a bump. He's got about a 10-point cushion in the last poll, and that's largely because of the Latino vote. Well, Leyla Martinez, we're having some technical difficulties, so we're going to let you go. Is there anything else, Leyla, you wanted to share about?
Oh, I see you again.
Did you want to jump on here and ask a question, brother? We got my.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest question I have into Leyla is that
So jump in, Elbert.
Yeah, I think a lot of people see, especially in the Dominican community, they see folks getting activated. I think they see a lot of young folks, and they love that. My question to you is, what have you learned on the road about yourself in terms of and your relationship with politics as you've been doing this, right? Because I think we grow every time we work, right, on a campaign. Like, what is that you've learned about yourself and so far about this stuff?
What I've learned about myself is that I want to be able to represent folks. I think I might want to be running for office myself. And this is what Bernie is inspiring in so many of us. I think I want to be able to help people, and speaking to a lot of the people in these communities, especially here where I'm at now at the Valley, and seeing how much they need Medicare for all because of illnesses that they've had, that they can't go to the doctor, that they have to cross to Mexico to buy medicine because they can't afford it here. I want to be able to do more than just fight for someone else like Bernie. Yes, I want to fight for Bernie, but I also want to fight in other ways. And I think that that's something that I learned about myself while here.
Well, Leyla, whenever you're ready to run for office, you got some friends here, and want to shout out a couple Latinas in New York making moves. Jessica Rojas, who's running for state assembly in Queens, a good friend to the show, and
yes, Dominican. That's a Dominican last name. Is she Dominican?
Puerto Rican Paraguayan.
Okay. Okay.
But don't sleep. Also, with there's a bunch of Dominicans running out for Serrano's old seat there, including I think for the kind of Barnard woman who's a housing advocate, community advocate. I want to say
Samelis?
Yeah, Samelis Lopez.
Samelis graduated from Barnard. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Y Dominicana también. So.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I met her at a DSA meeting.
Awesome. Yeah. Speaking of Colombia, Alexa Aviles, a good friend of ours, just threw her hat in the ring for New York City Council for 2021. So Alexa is on her P's and Q's. She's ready to go in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. We have time, Leyla, to connect you with Alexa and the rest of the Columbia Network doing big things. Leyla Martinez, we're so proud of you, dear. And we look forward to, we're going to keep on the trail. Elbert, when I was in Las Vegas, was it 2 weeks ago? It feels like forever. We were trying to connect, and we weren't able to do it. I was busy, she was busy, but a good friend of ours, Marco Rauda, helped us make sure.
Yeah, he helped me out. He definitely helped me out in my Bernie journey. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This has been amazing. I want to give a shout out to everyone who's helped me be on this journey. I wouldn't have been able to do it without the support of my Bernie family. I'm really grateful, and to you and everyone. I'm just really grateful. It's not L-A, it's L-E-Y. It's Lale. It's my name background.
We did this.
Lale 01.
No, post-production.
_01.
So Leyla Martinez, get something to eat, get some rest. Enjoy the valley. It's nice and warm down there this time of year.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's beautiful.
There's also a very interesting, not only Senate race, which we hope people
yes.
Ramirez, and as well as Jessica Cisneros.
Yeah.
In the Laredo area, and we have a lot of.
I'm having dinner with some folks that were knocking on doors for Bernie and for Jessica. I didn't because I wasn't in where we are now. I was pretty close, but yeah, maybe next time.
So Leyla, good luck on the trail. Keep us posted. Okay. And I'm sure we'll connect on Super Tuesday. Salud all our friends out.
Okay. Bye.
So that was Elbert. I mean, who else is on the ground here, brother? I mean, we got people calling in from South Texas, brother. Where else? See, that's the thing. You know, I was talking to someone, a major, I don't want to get a name, but a major Latina executive in the Fortune 7. I mean, we're talking about the highest ranked Latina, one of the highest companies. She's a fan. Not only did she share, she's a fan of the show, but she said, Ray, what the thing is, what you bring to the table, and more broadly, what the Found Translation family brings to the table is not only, some knowledge about what's going on, but in a way that connects with real people. Look at Leyla Martinez. And I've been pretty transparent about the show. I have my concerns about Bernie too, personally. But I can't front. Bernie's people, I got a lot of love for them. And I'm going to support them. I'm going to win or lose. I want Leyla Martinez to thrive. Because what an incredible story, bro. To come out of incarceration from the Bronx, from the hood, to graduate Columbia University and take this journey nationally in her pursuit for justice for not only the incarcerated, but the most vulnerable in our society, women incarcerated.
Well, look, and I think this is the thing, and I remember talking to someone this week about this, is that the thing with these the what I would say is one of the greatest, kind of current political strategists out there, Jessica Bird, does a lot of great work in the South. She talks about elections being safe houses for liberation, right? And I think that's a really good point, right? And it recalls my own memory with the Jesse Jackson campaign in '84 and '88, right? And even if you go beyond, back and behind that in terms of the campaign, the Harold Washington campaign in Chicago. I mean, these were elections that had a huge impact in terms of people, galvanizing people, teaching people what it meant to do campaigns, what it meant to actually get into government and get into office and actually to do something, right? And so I think when we think about this election, one of the things that, look, you may not like exactly his ideas. Maybe you're not into this whole Medicare for all. Maybe you're afraid that your own Medicaid is going to be taken away, right? That's something that people fear, right? And unfortunately, we live in a time where fear has currency, right? But you cannot deny the fact that for the last 4 years, the folks either directly or indirectly associated with the Bernie campaign have really built out a grassroots movement of really trying to get people activated. Now, that's in some ways also spurred on people to go from Bernie to other folks, to Elizabeth Warren, to other folks there, right? And so I think when people really talk about what they fear around the Bernie campaign is what you had said before, is that kind of rewriting the books, right? Rewriting who's the allegiances and really because that campaign is really exciting people. It's really exciting people.
Think about how many, let's keep it real. Think about how many consultants lose out if Bernie's on top. Think about all the lobbying that's not going to happen. Think about all the Democrats that work for pharmaceutical lobby shops, that work for, have relationships in the gas and oil industry, have relationships in the farm industry, and these are Democrats. And these are Democrats, and the DNC gets money from these people. All the leadership, all the Democrats, all the moderate Democrats get money from these people.
Yeah.
So we're keeping it real. and I'm not saying y'all should vote for Bernie just for that reason, but I think it's gravitating even more of us to consider him because what are we really fearing here? Someone is going to have an agenda that puts people first? All right, maybe he wants to push it too, but the pedal, the steering wheel's been going right for a long time. So these are the questions that we're going in, and this is the thing I wanted to mention as we transition, sort of laying out the state of the race at this point, is that there's really two emotions, two passions that are directing the rest of this race. One is, you just saw it, Leyla Martinez, who's literally traveling the country on a GoFundMe account to knock on doors because she wants people that have, with her background, have a better opportunity to get through the criminal justice system unscathed, or have a second chance at life.
Yeah.
And make sure people don't have to, sneak across the border, whether it's Canada or Mexico, or have a GoFundMe page so they can pay for the medicine. And we know that happens all the time with our people. God forbid you get the wrong illness and you have the wrong health care at the time. So, and on the other side of it, so that's the passion you just saw. Woman's like traveling the country like an indie band for this man, for this movement. Then the other passion is not really with Biden. It's not really with Buttigieg. It's not really with certainly on Bloomberg. It's the passion to stop that movement. That's really the passion. Now, some of the passion comes from a sincere place of, not only am I not really that left, I don't think we need to change things that much, but also of losing to Trump. And that's an honest, fair.
That's an honest fear. No, it's true. It's true.
But part of that fear also comes from fear of the unknown of what if he wins? What if he wins? So those are the dynamics we're dealing with, Elbert. Real quickly, I wanted to note real quick, because a lot of people asking questions what the dropouts mean. Steyer backed that thing up. One of the highlights, one of the social media highlights of the weekend was seeing our
Lord have mercy.
For time to Steyer, brother, for many reasons.
Lord.
Having one of the best circuits you could have, Juvenile, performing, back that thing up at his South Carolina rally.
Oh my God.
Tom's got some moves. My dear friend Evie Steyer was on stage jigging. I don't know if you saw that, Elbert. I had to break that video down this weekend on IG. So me and Evie had a moment. But the bottom line is, we'll get to Cesar Santiago breaks a lot of passion to that on Sunday night. Cesar Santiago breaks down. Not many rich people say I'm not worth $100 billion, but poor people can say I'm not worth free education or proper health care. It's time for us to say we are worth it. Thank you, brother. I love the passion. I know Maisel Maziere. Let's keep it real. Maisel Maziere, we got to support his perspective as well. Is this heartening to see young Latinos gravitate to an idea that's proven disastrous everywhere it's been applied? Many of their forefathers left socialism. To see the young embrace is just disappointing. Shows more history and economics needs to be taught. Maisel,
we gotta have a debate about that one. Yeah, a debate about that one, man. Because at the end of the day, look, I think that's a framing issue, right? I mean, what is socialism? What isn't? I mean, look, at the end of the day,
really, we're running away from authoritarianism. I would argue.
Right, exactly. I would argue that.
In whatever flavor it is, because sometimes you run away from the right, authoritarian. Many times, there's been many times we run away from the left. It's, I think at the end of the day, we've talked about that on the show. Hey, and like I said, we got love for Maisel, and we want to have all the opinions on the table. That is an honest concern. We would certainly argue it's a framing question, right? So we'll have, as we lead up to Florida, I'm sure we'll have more time for that conversation. But Maisel to make sure he got his comment out, because it's a legitimate perspective.
No, it is, and I want to be honest too. Like, I think we talked a lot of love about what the Birdie campaign is doing. I'm not necessarily sold on whether or not that he's the proper brother to lead us to the presidency. So again, I want to kind of reiterate to folks,
especially in Florida, he needs to lead that role.
So I want to reiterate that fact. I want to reiterate that.
President Maisel, I'd be hawkish on Cuban policy. It would not. I would let that go. I would just concede that. Like, all right, fine. I'd like the baseball players. It just wouldn't be. It would not be my pet issue. There's no question about that. So let's get to the dropouts really quick. Steyer, got a lot of love for him. He brought a lot to the table in terms of racial injustice, the climate change issue. Very similar sort of Inslee, kind of keeping the drumbeat going. But very much was just too much of a. He really came off the entire time like a progressive patron than like a leader that potentially could run. He really, especially when he was on the side of the debates, was almost like coaching the other candidates as much as sort of arguing why he should be the one you vote for. Voters, particularly in Nevada and South Carolina, particularly minority voters, flirted with him. partially because of those humongous ad buys he was doing.
Mhm.
And he actually, give him credit, he was actually campaigning. He wasn't like Bloomberg doing this from the top of the mountain. He was campaigning. I literally ran into his daughter campaigning in the hood in North Las Vegas. I mean, these people were earnest people. They've got a real good team. Got a lot of friends in that group, Fernando and Jenna and the others. So, much respect to Tom. And he seems like he's going to be very interested in the Lindsey Graham Senate race. He's kind of hinted at.
I'm about to say, I mean, that's where some of that money could really be helpful. I mean, I think
Harrison's got a shot, no question about it. So, and then in terms of Buttigieg, the big announcement that just happened hours ago, it's sort of spurred on our Super Tuesday preview here happening today, is that, it's a big deal. I mean, as many know, he was one of the people after Iowa I was saying was still in the running. I then after Nevada sort of switched my thinking to say, well, Biden with a second place in Nevada showed that he's at least got some viability among minority voters. So that sort of left Buttigieg out the mix. The bottom line is, there's the bottom line. If he's the Pascal Siakam of the race, the guy that was the most improved player, it came out of nowhere. The guy finished very competitive. He's going to finish top 5 and 6 in delegates. And he ran a real strong race. I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed of. And really kind of got that golden wild card ticket that we all were assuming either was going to be a battle between a Harris, Booker, and Beto, and he outlasted all of them by a mile. So, you got to give the brother credit. And, I think he was the best communicator in this race.
Yeah, I think where he lost a little bit of his shine was in the last couple of debates. I tend to think, and I think he's going to regret some of that stuff looking back in terms of especially that exchange with Amy Klobuchar, and I think in terms of just he came off, I think really kind of really nasty in terms of trying to tell people like it's either you're going to be caught between Bloomberg and Bernie, and I'm the one. It just didn't seem to kind of catch.
I think and this is where I owe the extra mile for y'all found translation people. Is that and LB knows, because he's part of the inside crew. I got inside information. So this is all I gotta say. When I was in Vegas, I can't get the names, but I spoke to someone very, very, very high up in the Buttigieg camp, and possibly over a room of coke. They shared with me. Possibly, can't confirm or deny that.
Can't confirm or deny
that they knew going Lawford Americano, no shot at all. And that the only shot they had is if they could just get enough of a piece of the Latino piece to stay in the mix. And that's really the bottom line. I can't even really fault anything he did wrong, to be honest with you. I mean, look, I was somewhat critical of his debate performance, not because of his style, but because of his substance, because he's real good with the rhetoric and he's really gotten good practicing how to sound like Obama, which you've seen. It's kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really saw it when his goodbye today. But that there wasn't anything to back up the rhetoric. So I think the empty suitness that some of us sort of identified early on, the sort of Buttigieg haters, I think it just sort of came about. And the bottom line is, you have no connect with minority voters in a Democratic primary the way it's laid out. It's not going to happen.
No, that's true.
And he still has a lot of goodwill, but it's a competitive race. I think Bloomberg also didn't help him. I mean, that ate up some of the.
Yeah, I think so.
Support. And
right.
The bottom line is with Nevada and South Carolina, Biden and Sanders are the only two that have anything going on with black and Latino. So they're the ones that are going to probably stick around. A lot of people were asking me, should Klobuchar step down now? And I think there's two reasons she won't. One is there's a part of Klobuchar that's really reveling in the fact she lasted longer than Buttigieg because straight up. So I lasted longer than him. Can I get more delegates for him, even if I just sprinkle them around? I think she wants to win Minnesota, partially for pride, partially to sort of finish what she started in some way, which is she's polling. She's not dominating, but she is polling that she should win it. But also to block Sanders, because if she drops out today, Bernie wins Minnesota Tuesday.
That's true. That's true.
But this is also a strategic move indirectly to support Biden, or at least the moderate option, because Bloomberg's not playing this game. Many people thought that were reaching out to me and they were asking me, Ray, do you think Buttigieg was promised something? And generally, believe it or not, especially this early in the game, generally we think that things get promised. You'd be surprised how many things don't get promised.
Yeah, I agree.
But why should he promise him anything? He's out. The black community knocked Buttigieg out the mix. Clyburn knocked Buttigieg out. You don't need him at this point, though.
Yeah.
But also, I just think in general, Buttigieg, I mean, he was going to finish 5th everywhere. And he just knew it was better to stop now. So I'm sure he's going to make vestures. I'm sure there's conversations. I'm sure there'll be an endorsement of Biden at some point, unless Bloomberg, buys him out, which is possible. But I don't think that was necessarily the reason he dropped out today. I think he dropped out today, because someone's solidarity was sort of just the moderate movement of the party, but also because he didn't want to look like he fell on his face Tuesday.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, I think if he's got any aspirations for doing this again one time, another and whether it's another 8 years or 12 years, I mean, shoot, I mean, it's Biden. Biden's, the first time he won a primary in 33 years, right? So, I think if he has sure that California is not
the for one state, brother.
Yeah,
that's saying something.
No.
So that's saying something. So now we turn to Super Tuesday.
Super Tuesday.
We've got a third of the delegates on the table. This is really a national primary day. 2 of the biggest states in the country in population, California and Texas, going to be in the mix, including a smattering of New England states, Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont. Then you go down to the South, the dirty, the SEC primary, Virginia, North Carolina, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee. You go into the western middle part of the middle America, Oklahoma, Minnesota, Texas, Colorado, which everyone's sleeping on Colorado. I got a lot of love for my Colorado people. Nobody's talking about that Colorado primary. Going to be critical. Utah, California, and one of the Samoan Pacific Islands, Northern Mariana Islands, I believe, is also in the mix. 6 electoral votes. This situation is why I say it. What's going to play out Tuesday, y'all? This is La Batalla aquí. There's really 2 coalitions want to develop, which, again, I'm the one that said on social media, and then Chuck Dodd bit off me this morning.
Chucky T, come on now.
On one corner, progressives and Latinos. Latinos just got into the mix. Most of us are young anyway. And those young Latinos, as I've said on the show, I'm going to keep repeating it. Why should they have the most passion? They're the ones on the line in 2 respects. One, just as millennials and the Generation Z, they're the ones getting the brunt of this economic inequality.
Yep.
And then they get the added thing of getting the crap as Latinos. And getting the fear and the harassment and the bullying. Think about all these. Think about if you're a 22, 23-year-old Latino immigrant kid, even if you're legal here. Regardless of your family status, you live in Houston, you live in El Paso, you live in Albuquerque, think about your little sister that's 10, 11-year-old getting harassed all the time. She's got an accent, or she's one of the 12 Latino kids in the school. Those people, that's the passion I'm talking about. They're the ones that are going to make a difference in this election. So and they don't care about the establishment. They were little kids when Obama was deporting their uncles and aunts. 10 years, 12 years ago, let's keep it real. So we got the progressives, this movement, including like orange people too, that just definitely don't want Bloomberg or Biden, right? And the Latinos. The other side is the moderates, those suburban moms, the sort of casual Democrats that ain't here. They got a lot of talking and they vote, but they don't do a lot of organizing, frankly. They haven't shown me much in this cycle. Moderate, sorry. I don't see you out here like Leyla late at night working.
Right.
African Americans, whether it's out of comfort, out of a relationship with Biden, the scary Sanders guy, maybe they're just loyal Democrats, maybe they're more moderate ideologically. But African Americans are I predict, stay in Biden's corner on this. And it makes LB, the dynamic is historic and really telling about not only the direction of our country. It's like where our country is and where our country is going to be. And all of that is coming to a head in this primary cycle. And we'll come ahead Tuesday.
Yeah, it's gonna. I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. I think what we're also going to be able to see with this, 1/3 of the delegates kind of being chosen and decided, is also in terms of this moderate wing. Like, is this moderate wing just afraid, or are they tone deaf? Right. I think that's the real question that I'm curious. Right. I'm really curious about, because at some point, I think part of the issue is that aside from, look, a lot of the debate around Medicare for all and healthcare is really kind of a wonky kind of like execution strategy. Right. No one's really necessarily arguing that healthcare shouldn't be a right, but the real question is at what cost, right? And what does that mean? But I want to hear beyond that. I want to see what a government that actually is dedicated or centered around working class folks and communities of color. What does that mean, right? What does that mean? And I think it's up to and honestly, I think Bernie, Warren, Bloomberg, Biden, they've got to say that, right? They've got to say that, right? Because especially post Super Tuesday, right? When again, there's going to be a bunch of delegates still available. More importantly, the core of the party is going to be what's available. Because I tell you, man, if from now to June we still get the same mess of people just kind of like talking and snapping at each other, that's just going to be de-energizing for everybody.
Well, we will see, because it could be we only have 2 people after Wednesday, 3 people after Wednesday, right? So,
Right.
So the things you want to look out for is really, there's a real regional flavor here. So there's, you would imagine that with those southern states, if not the majority, a huge chunk of the Democrats that come out for those primaries are African Americans. So will the South Carolina just be a blip because it was Clyburn,
Right.
and Biden has a certain relationship with the community there? But is it a real thing? Is it a real sentiment with black voters, particularly Southern black voters, that the Sanders thing is just too tricky and scary? And then really in the rest of the country, that New England states, Massachusetts, because it's so heavily Democratic, has a lot of electoral votes. It's like 90-something votes.
Yeah.
And Bernie's in a standoff with Warren there, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And then you go to California, which is really sort of the big prize. So the thing you want to look out for it is not only, sort of where Warren plays, and I do want to give Warren a second to mention her, because she still has a little bit of a factor in this, in Bloomberg, but how many of those candidates outside of Sanders get to the 15% threshold? So,
Yep, that's true.
I mean, literally, if, the way the statistical chips could fall is that it's hypothetically that Sanders could be the only one that gets to that level of 15%, because he's certainly going to win. It's just about much. And he basically wins. He wins this thing Tuesday because of that. He basically wins all the delegates. Now, that's probably not going to happen, especially with Buttigieg out the race and Steyer out the race. So
Right.
will rise a little bit. But those margins are going to be really important. And the Texas margin, and Leyla Martinez alluded to it, even a week ago, it looked like a 2-3 point race within the margin of error between Sanders and even Bloomberg and Biden. And now it looks like Bernie's picked up a bigger lead. A third of the votes are already in California. A big chunk of the votes are already in Texas. A lot of people in Colorado have already voted. There's a lot of early voting in these states, my friends, particularly in the West. And so, it's kind of a done deal. Buttigieg will get 5% plus in a lot of these places just because of that dynamic. So the extra, the spill off is not going to be as much in California because of that dynamic. A lot of his votes are already in, essentially. So, so those are the things you got to look out for. The other part of this dynamic, brother, is Biden has no money. So there's not going to be tons of ads coming up.
Yep, that's the thing.
In Dallas and in San Francisco, in LA, in San Diego, in Denver, in Houston, in Boston. There's not going to be a lot in the DC metro area, DC media market, Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte. Not going to be a lot of ads the next couple of days. You know what you're going to see a lot of ads of? You're going to see a lot of Bloomberg ads.
Yep.
You're going to see a lot of Sanders ads.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you're going to have Sanders people in your crib knocking on your door. Because Sanders is wiping the competition as it relates to field organization, not just because of the passion, because he's got the money. My man raised almost $50 million in February.
Yep.
So can Biden's brand, which has gotten him exactly one victory in one state in 32 years of running for president, keep him competitive Tuesday? South versus the coast, West Coast. It's a barn burner, brother. It's really interesting because there's some obvious strengths. I can't take away from the power of the black electorate in this process because it's very big. And if you understand the delegate math, black people even have a disproportionate amount of power. Not only just because they vote, because of the way the congressional districts divvy up delegates. But that's really all Biden has. So is it enough? Fascinating, Elbert.
Isn't enough. Will be? Well, we'll find out. And I'm sure you'll be here to tell us. I'm sure that.
No question about it. Really quickly, got a couple things I wanted to share. Bloomberg is also a big factor, right, Elbert? Because one would argue he's blocking Biden. One would argue maybe he dies out. because nobody's gotten a vote for this guy. Maybe he underperforms in the polling. It's a real wild card.
Well, the thing is, what surprises me is in places in some of those southern states where, again, the media markets are smaller and he's been able to buy a bunch of ads, where he still is competitive, even though people, he's a northerner, he's a northern, and
he's even been competitive, at least in polling with African Americans in the South.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. And then Warren, I want to give her a minute because, I mean, Warren's got to be scratching her head about this whole situation. She's raising money. She's, she basically knocked out Bloomberg. The biggest factor in Bloomberg dying off is her because of the way she knocked him down their first debate. She's got a really fervent support. She's got a very respectable cadre of supporters, Leon Castro, and our girl, what's her name, Katie Porter, Congresswoman out in Orange County, is fantastic. I mean, we got a lot of love for her people. We got a lot of love for her. All of our Florida friends that are with her, and she just hasn't been able to grow out of that niche. It's a prestigious niche. It's like a Netflix series. Her people, HBO, it's prestige constituency, but it just is really that highly educated, very involved person. And outside of that, she just hasn't. So can she pull it off? And I really encourage people, all jokes aside, that if you're really down with Warren, vote for her Tuesday. Vote for her because this is it. There's no reason why she couldn't become, after Tuesday, number 2 or number 3 in this process.
Yeah.
There really isn't. So if you really believe in her, as many of us do, I got a lot of love for the woman. I think it just gives the Buttigieg stepping away from the stage. And there is a certain group of Buttigieg people that would go that would gravitate to Warren. Some people that weren't really down with Bernie or Biden, but they were kind of going with a Bloomberg or a Klobuchar or stop by default. Hey, if you're down with Warren, if you think she's the best candidate, this is it for her. And it'll be interesting because she has the money. She's really hinting that she's going to stick around for leverage and to see if she can maybe outlast the Biden or kind of be there at the last 2 or 3. But if she's 4th everywhere, I don't know. But there is some polling that suggests she may pull. She could be 2nd in California, which has kind of
I think the biggest thing. I think the biggest thing that has hampered Warren is, I think there is a certain degree of voters who already just wonder whether a woman could beat Trump in general. And I really think that like it or not, that a lot of people's minds is that after Hillary in 2016, doesn't think that can happen. And I honestly think that that's why she gets X'd out in people's mind, because everyone agrees like her plan, her execution, the proper balance of progressive values and knowing government, like all those things tends to put her up there. And so I think you're right. I think people have to vote in terms of that way, especially in terms of her, and kind of show it in terms of that way. And look, it's going to be a strange political season. We don't know what the hell is going to go on, and we don't know in some ways what's going to happen when we get to the convention, right? I mean, someone was caught.
I think that's what Warren's banking on, and Bloomberg, frankly, I think Bloomberg basically like, if I'm stick around and he don't got 50%, I can buy everybody off.
And I think she sticks in and says, "I'm the consensus."
I'll look like the reasonable consensus,
right?
In that scenario, and I'll continue to outperform Biden, and Biden's going to have his ups and downs. And I mean, unless really black people across the board really just decide Biden's the guy, he's still not going to do this. He's still a long shot if you look at it statistically. So it's really interesting. Really quickly, some of the headlines I wanted to note. We talked about DR earlier, of course. Much love, respect, and Viva la Democracia in Santo Domingo. The coronavirus. One story that's been under the radar really involves 2 of the big Latino characters in politics. I don't know if you've seen the Twitter battle between Senator Cruz over the weekend with AOC, Elbert, but basically AOC criticized President Trump on social media for appointing anti-science guy and just wants to pray that everything works out. Vice President Pence, if people realize in 2015 he basically
oh my God, it was so horrible.
Managed as governor of Indiana an HIV outbreak by saying God will provide, and many more people that should have were infected. And so criticizing someone like him to be put in charge of this very delicate health crisis in our country. And Senator Cruz retorts, well, since you're such a expert in science, why don't you break down for us what's a Y chromosome? AOC then proceeded to share that she has awards for her work in science from MIT. She has an economics degree from Boston University and has many other by the way, was the youngest woman ever elected to U.S. Congress. So, but it was very interesting because she couched that shade back at Cruz in the fact that you only view me by the lowest wage job that I ever had as a bartender. And so very interesting how she brought it back to this class dynamic. And it was very disrespectful. And of course, she also noted, I'm also one of your colleagues, and this is how you treat somebody. So even in something that should be bipartisan and be something where we come together to address a health crisis that knows no color, no parties, no political affiliations. People are the first case in New York State has been announced, Elby, unfortunately.
Yeah. But also in Florida, the governor refused to say that, refused to comment further about the case there when he was asked by reporters on Friday. Even though honestly, we don't have the time in terms of tonight to just talk about like the potential politicization of health of this health issue. Honestly, it is coño, da pena. Da pena. Da vergüenza. Like I don't even know how to say it in English, right? Like it's a crying shame.
Very scary. And then the last thing, and some good news, LB. I always gotta call out one of my young boys, Jonathan Murrah. I remember like 3 years ago, Jonathan Murrah. I went up to Jonathan. One of my young hip hop guys thinks he's cool, and I said, Jonathan, the boy that's gonna hit it and is gonna change the landscape of Latin music, música urbana, even hip hop. It's this young boy that's gonna lead the trap game. Bad Bunny. He didn't know what Bad Bunny was. And one of my great predictions, my friend LP, Bad Bunny. Can you dominate? Not only did he release his album, #YHLQMDLG over the weekend, got over 75 million streams over the weekend, LP. The number 2 streamer was 3. He tripled the second biggest streamer over the weekend on Spotify, which I think was J Balvin, by the way.
Wow.
And Drizzy and all them were way back in the pack. Bad Bunny is the dominant figure, not only in Latin music, but in the hip-hop music in general. Totally changing the game. But I want to also give him a shout out not only for his great success, but his great activism. When he released his album on the Jimmy Fallon show a few days ago, Elbert, he had a T-shirt which gave homage to Alexa Negron Luciano, a transgendered woman who was viciously killed on the island of Puerto Rico last week. And David Begnat, the patron saint of the island, has been chronicling the fact that the government and the police have been very mum around this issue. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of even family support for Alexa. So Bad Bunny pushed back on this idea that people are referring to him as just some guy in a skirt. No, there's a human being. There's a woman that we lost tragically. So Bad Bunny doing his thing, eh? Doing his thing.
Man. Look, I think it's things like that when folks do that. That's what really makes change, right? Like, I think when it crosses over into popular culture and musicians and stuff like that, props to him, props to the folks who are doing that,
No question about it. I'm going to wrap this up. Give a comment. My other compadre in South Florida.
No doubt.
Santiago, we have Medicare for all ages 65 plus. Nobody is afraid of that. And Caesar has become quite a passionate Bernie Crat in the last several months. We much respect to you, brother. We love you a lot. And I may be getting down to Florida at some point in the near future. We'll definitely let our friends know. Maybe we can do a show of Found in Translation as the waves come off the beaches in Las Olas or something. So, Elbert Garcia, let people know where they can find the Que Lo Que podcast. Anything else you wanted to shout out on this Super Tuesday Eve edition of Found in Translation?
Well, you can always go to queloquepodcast.com to find us, check out the latest episodes. January and February has been a little busy, but I think, we're ramping stuff up for March, especially because March is Women's History Month. We want to give a lot of shout out to our lovely mothers and sisters and other femmes out there who are doing really great things, and who hopefully we all should be celebrating, not just in terms of this month, but every day of the year. So I want to give my personal shout out for that.
No question about it. And I want to do preview for my West Coast heads. See, I represent for everybody. People know that. Is that I have also gotten the bug of Hentified, the new Netflix sensation. And I've put out the call, especially to our West Coast Mexicanas and Latinas, our Califas heads. We got to have a Hentified deep dive on the show. After Super Tuesday, it's going to be a little break in the action. It won't be quite as crazy with the election. So we got to bring up some other topics. So Felicia Licon, who's also on the California State School Board. Lisa Ocampo, Alicia Lewis, our great friend, and some other mothers have thrown their hat in. They want to be part of this conversation. So
no doubt.
A deep dive episode of Found in Translation in the near future. And Sylvia Picarelli, want to shout her out. She's been a great supporter of the show. She's going to be co-hosting a show with me very soon. So another strong voice is going to come into the mix. And always, all of our folks are always doing their thing. Christina Vega had a very successful gala for Found in Love Show Nerd Movement. Danelli Reyes is breaking the internet.
I'm saying
that. She's doing her thing she's becoming quite an IG sensation. And you're sure Rivera, just on the show recently, always holding it down for everybody. So Elbert, brother, a lot going on, brother.
A lot going on. But you know what they say, March is just only the beginning of this, my friend.
March Madness.
Indeed.
Thank you so much, brother. I'm sure we'll pop on here at some point Tuesday night.
Most definitely.
You have a great week.
You too.